Hello. So this message is a little bit like uh not I don't want to say complicated because that's not the right word, but it's kind of hard to follow, right? So try to bear with me, but this is the message that the Lord gave me for today. So he's saying, okay, so those who have had people coming against you, whether it's been all throughout 2023, throughout 2024, and say maybe even, who knows, 2022, 2021, 2020, could have been, in the 90s, could have been the 2000s, could have been your whole life, could have been the last 5 years. It doesn't really matter. Just anybody that can identify with being a child of God on the true path towards the Lord, and you've experienced an uproar of people coming against you, again, whether that's been specifically in the last 6 months of 2024 or all of 2023, so for a year or a year and a half, or since post 2020, since we had the breakout, so in the last 4 years, whatever, or even in the last 10, 15, 20 years, whatever the time frame may be for you, okay? But the Lord is specifically showing me, in particular, just to make it more specific, post 2023. So kind of 2020, 2022, 2023, not so much 2024, but specifically 2020, 2022 and 2023 specifically. If some of my past messages resonate for you and that you've had people coming against you, whether this be, okay, and I'm talking about like a group or a gang of people. I'm not talking about your boyfriend's ex-girlfriend or like your one of your parents or your parental figures. I'm talking like family members, co-workers at your job, even sometimes strangers on the street, right? Or out and about. Ex-lovers of yours, ex-lovers of your ex-lovers, friend, you know what I mean? People you went to high school with, like just, like I'm talking like all different kinds of categories. This person there, that person here, this person, whatever. So the Lord is saying that, I'm not going to get into the parts of like why these people are doing this and why they have done this in the past and all that stuff, because I've already talked about that a lot, right? And I'm sure by this point you're already aware of all that stuff. But what the Lord was highlighting to me was in that respect connected with, like, so that situation, right? Connected with messages. So the Lord confirmed that, as I know and you know, we already know, those that this resonates for that are on this path I'm describing, we already know that these people, as they say, were throwing rocks and hiding their hands and then coming back to see the damage. So the Lord is showing me like almost like somebody that like, okay, so he's saying like someone who's like, I forget what it's called, but they're like obsessed with fire, like a pyrotechnic or something along those lines, but pyro for short. The Lord is saying that those type of people oftentimes will start a fire and then run away and hide and make it look like it wasn't them, but that they can't help themselves. They like to go back and see what damage it caused. So not only do they like get off on like causing damage, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, but that's not enough. They like to come back to see the aftermath, right? So same analogy as hiding rocks, hiding their hands, but the catch is it goes a step further, that they'll throw rocks, hide their hands, and hide, but yet make sure they're in the crowd to try to see the aftermath of what happened, okay? So, and some people are like that. So the Lord is saying that not only were they it wasn't in your imagination, as you already know, not only were these people like so-called coming against you over the course of, say, the last 1, 2, 3 years in specific, but they also were trying to come back to see if any of this worked. So what am I talking about? Okay, so say for instance, just as an example, say you had some family members, okay? Doesn't matter who their roles are. It could have been, a sibling, a cousin, a parent, whatever. So an in-law, like a sister-in-law or a father-in-law or a brother-in-law, you know what I mean? Some sort of family dynamic, just as an example. the Lord is saying that oftentimes they would team up in your absence. So when you weren't there, you could even have went to a family event and you went outside to do something, or you were in the bathroom, and then they would like talk about you, or say they didn't even invite you at all, or they were hosting and holding events without you. And either way, it doesn't matter. You're not in the vicinity, and they're sitting there. Some of them are gossiping and over exaggerating things. So say you talk to the sibling and you told them that, you're looking for work or you're out of work at this time or something, it just comes up in conversation. The Lord is saying that then that sibling would conglomerate with somebody else in the family, whether it be a parent figure or a grandparent figure or another sibling, say, or something like that. And then one of the two would bring you up, and sometimes even the sibling themselves, like the person you last spoke to, would intentionally bring you up just to get the topic turned to you, because you're not there, right? Or say it could even be something as innocent as like, oh, where's so and so? How come they didn't come? Like, say somebody unattached asks this, that sibling or that cousin, whoever you gave that information to, would be like, oh yeah, no, they couldn't come, they're having to look for work, oh really, oh yeah, they mentioned they're having a really hard time right now. And so now they're over exaggerating what you said. All you said was that you're in between jobs and looking for a new job, so you can't make it because you're handing out resumes. And next thing you know, they're sitting there having this like, you're almost on the verge of losing your house, you can't feed your kid, you know what I mean? It's like to the next level. Like they're taking a molehill and making it a mountain, making it seem like it's so much worse. And for one, the Lord is saying that that's like, trying to gossip about you, for one, because just having a conversation behind your back is the gossip. But then two, there's like the slandering in there, of trying to make you sound and look bad and say you said things that you didn't say. And then third of all, there's the over exaggeration / even to the point of lying, saying, maybe you've been out of work for 2 weeks. They're saying you've been out of work for months, an over exaggeration spin put on top of it just to make it sound all the worse, right? So then on a scale of 1 to 10, your problem is like a 2, but it gets broadcasted like it's an 8 or 9. And so then that gets put out to these other people in the vicinity, right? Other family members, whoever may be in earshot. And then next thing you know, they're under this impression, because why would the sibling make this up or try to throw you under the bus, right? And they haven't seen you in a little while, and according to the sibling, they have. So they're just going to, whether they intentionally do it or unintentionally do it, they're taking the word of what was just broadcasted to them, and then they're going and saying, mentioning that to like their spouse or like their kids or, their neighbor or something like that. And so the Lord is saying, like, this is kind of what they were doing. So this is an example of how someone's like, throwing a rock, quote unquote, basically throwing a problem, and then pleading the fifth, like, oh, and then if it comes back to you, or somehow that you catch wind somehow that this person was saying this, they'll plead the fifth and be like, oh, it wasn't like that, or I never said that, or all I said was what you told me, that you had been looking for work. And then they try to make it like they were trying to do it for your benefit, like I was pretty sure that XYZ family member / person had a job opportunity available, so I was only mentioning it for your better interest, so that I could try to see if you could, do you know what I'm saying? Like trying to somehow spin it. So like they took that little nugget of information and blew it up and put it out on Front Street, so to speak. And then when it's put out, the blown up lie and exaggeration is put on Front Street, then they will turn around and plead like the victim to that person, like, oh, well, I was just trying to help them, find a job. I didn't have any malicious intent. And then if you find out, then they just say, oh, it wasn't like that, because they know you're not there, right? And so they know that there's no like proof of what exactly they said. So therefore they just try to slough it off like it wasn't to that level, but it really was, right? So therefore throwing the rock, hiding the hand, but then they want to come back after the fact and see like, well, how did that make this person feel? Like, did they get a job? Did they end up talking to that person I said this to? So it's not enough to like exaggerate and slander and make a mountain out of a molehill and take a nugget of information and blow it up into something it wasn't. But on top of that, they want to, play hot potato, where when the hot potato comes, they don't want to touch. I'm not touching that, I'm not touching that. But they were fine to touch it last week when they were talking, right? And then that's not enough to just go away and leave it. They have to eventually come back out of the woodworks and see how that affected your relationship with that person, how that affected your job finding, did, you know what I'm trying to say? So the Lord's just giving that to me as an example, and there's many different examples. Or like, say for instance, it's between, say, you and a love interest, like a partnership or something. And say there's somebody who mutually knows you and your partner, right? You know that this person knows you both, or maybe you don't, but they know that they know you and both your partner. And maybe you and your partner know that this is a third person, but maybe you don't, or maybe your partner doesn't, but it doesn't matter. Either way, this third person knows that they know you and or your partner. So therefore they feel all the better being in that position, because if you all don't know, you and your partner don't know that you mutually know this person, then it makes it even easier for them to, throw darts into your guys' situation, so to speak, verbally or mentally, and then run and hide their hands, because they know that either you don't know that they know your love interest partner, or they know that your love interest partner doesn't know that. You know what I'm trying to say? It's so messed up. I'm trying to follow, like I said, follow with me, because this is what the Lord was trying to say. I know what he means, but I'm trying to put it into understandable words. So that person will then go and say to your partner things behind your back, whether they're like in consistent contact with you, because maybe you don't know that they know your partner as well, or even better if you're not in consistent contact with them, because then it's even easier for them to hide once they plant these bombs, so to speak, that they just wait to go off. But then that's not enough. They want to come back and see if you all broke up, if they left you, if there was someone else, if they believed what they said about you. So again, here's a scenario. Say this third wheel, this third party person, it doesn't really matter if you know that they know you and your person, or if they're on your person's side or whatever, it doesn't matter. Or you don't know that that there is an association there. Either way, they're aware of the mutual association. And then they go and say to your partner, oh, you know what I heard blah, blah, blah. Or I actually am friends with his or her ex-partner's girlfriend or boyfriend, present girlfriend, boyfriend. And they told me that what they told them is blah, 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 right? More gossip, more slander, more exaggerations, more lies, things that aren't true. And whether they realize it intentionally or unintentionally, some are intentional, some are unintentional, your ex-partner lied. They were actually this, that, and the third, but they lied about you to other people so that they didn't look bad, right? And so then this third party person caught wind of this lie, or they just made this up on their own. Either way, it doesn't matter really, because this false report made it back to your lover or love interest, spouse, partner, whatever, and they are no longer seeing you in the same light as they were previously over this basically a lie and over this slander and things that weren't really true. Again, there may have been a nugget of truth in there, but it got blown into something it wasn't, right? And or it wasn't even any ring of truth to it at all. And then once there's a problem started up over this, it causes controversy. They run and take advantage of the fact that people don't know that they're the third party, and then they're out of the scenario, out of the heat, so to speak. They started a fire and ran away once it got hot, but then that's not enough. They can't help themselves. They have to go back when the heat dies down and see what damage it caused. So in that scenario, see, like, are you and that person still together? Did you find someone else? Did they find someone else? what kind of damage did they cause exactly? And again, the Lord is saying that some of these people it was done intentionally, and with some of these people it was done unintentionally, but it doesn't really matter. At the root and the core of these little various scenarios is over exaggerations, deceit, lies, and slander, right? And gossip. And so anyway, so the Lord is saying that that is what people have been doing. There's other things too, but I'm not going to get into all that. Just for this specific message, I'm going to focus on those situations, okay? So that would happen. So then the Lord is saying that because they couldn't always retrieve information firsthand, because the Lord had guided and directed you to cut these said people off, these friends, family members, ex-associates, whatever it may be, work co-workers, whatever, the Lord had directed you to cut them off because of these malicious things that were going on behind your back. They didn't always get the full gamut of information that they wanted to get. Some of them wanted information to try to continue to do this to you, planting these little seeds of negativity all around. Others of them they went ahead and planted the seeds of negativity, and they, like little bombs, and they already blew up, but they wanted to go back and see how much damage actually it caused, because they didn't see close enough they wanted a level 10 damage, and it looked like maybe only a level 1. So they were like, well, is it more than that? Their need for having justification of their evil wickedness was so strong that they had to go and not only plant these bombs to begin with and wait for them to blow off, but go and see how much damage actually happened. So the Lord is saying, like somebody returning back to the scene of a crime, right? For even though they know they could get caught, they're willing to do it because they're just so desperate to see what their wicked actions actually manifested, what exactly came of it, right? So anyways, so the Lord is saying that, so with all that said, that those types of scenarios were going on throughout 2023, 2022, etc., whatever the time frame may be. And so because they weren't receiving the information as closely as maybe they perpetuated they would, they instead were turning to avenues of information, as in like prophetic words, or most of all tarot and dark arts and psychics and mediums and things like that, right? It's just like, okay, so the Lord is telling me about like how Saul consulted with the medium in the Bible and he received the dark spirit, right? So the Lord is saying that these people, due to their jealousy of you, just like how Saul had jealousy of David, it prompted them to have to go so far, whether that was in their comfort zone or not, to go so far as visiting psychics and mediums to try to retrieve information on you, just like Saul wanted to with David, because they wanted to know if, what goods they could get on you to do more of these bomb plantings in the future, and or how successful their past bombs were that went off and received some sort of information, because they weren't getting that from you firsthand. And so just like Saul received the evil spirit on him after that visit, these people have also received evil spirit on them after their visits, and they're just not aware of it. Some of them are just pure wicked to the bone, but others of them, their jealousy got the best of them, and it caused them to do these things, which then led into maybe doing things outside their normal zone or comfort zone, which then led to just even more of an evil spirit being planted on them than they had originally had, right? And as we know, what happened to Saul in the end, right? And so that's the thing, is like with these people, when you get these evil spirits on you, and especially if you aren't aware that you have this evil spirit, it can take manifest and root in you and cause things to happen in your life that are fully warranted, because you're the one that put yourself in that position in the first place. And because they're refusing to repent and truthfully, wholeheartedly mean it and stop what they're doing, they're never receiving salvation. So therefore the wheel just keeps turning round and round and round, right? So anyways, so the Lord is saying that they had been doing these things throughout 2022 and 2023 specifically, and then were turning around and trying to consult tarot, and then went to prophetic words. Whatever avenue they could find, they would have talked to, your brother's best friend's cousin's sister, just to try to get some information on you. It didn't matter connection. They just, they were trying to send in people to spy, retrieve, and then that didn't work. So these people did a bunch of different tactics in your physical world, but the Lord kept shutting them down and giving you more and more wisdom, discernment on how they were moving. So they really had no choice ultimately but to consult like tarot and things like that. But the Lord is saying that he even thwarted them there, because so the Lord is saying that when these people were receiving messages through the dark arts last year that were saying, you're cursed, things are going to be terrible. Like, so they were receiving what they thought was confirmation. Like, yes, our plans are working because we aren't finding out firsthand. Everything looks and seems okay, but we've consulted a medium and the dark arts, and the dark arts and medium are saying that the cards and the medium and whatever it is, whatever avenue they sought out, is saying that yes, a person's cursed, a person's fallen from grace, a person is expected to meet a bitter end in the future. A person is going to lose everything in the future. You know what I'm saying? Like negative kind of messages. And so these people assumed that that was about you. And so therefore they were feeling very validated and thinking, oh, okay, they don't know what's coming for them. And like, they don't understand what we've done, and they're not aware of this. And like, we're ahead of them, like we're 10 steps ahead of them, we're so smart, we're throwing these rocks and hiding our hands. And then we're even getting to go back and check out the aftermath through these these avenues, through like tarot mediums and prophetic words and stuff, and doing whatever we can, spying, all this other stuff, and we're hearing from, but the Lord wants me to speak mostly specifically about the tarot and the dark arts. Okay, so because they were consulting with the tarot and the dark arts, the reader was telling them that there was negativity and hardship currently and up ahead for XYZ, a said person, right? And they went and assumed that that must have been for you because they had done this stuff against you. However, the Lord is saying that actually what that was, unbeknownst to them, they thought that you were in the dark, but actually they were the ones in the dark. They thought they ran game on you, but actually the Lord ran game on them, because all those little so-called prophecies that they were hearing of hardship and problems in the future was actually for them. They thought that this reader was saying stuff about you, but the reader was actually saying stuff about them. And that this reader was making predictions in regards to you, and they were getting all excited, but in reality, those predictions were for them. So when last year they're hearing, or even this year, doesn't matter, they're hearing of someone cursed, they think it's you, but they're actually the one that's cursed. They're hearing of somebody that was suffering and having hardship, but actually they're the ones that have been suffering and having hardship and are going to in the future suffer and have hardship. They were receiving their own, the predictions that they thought were for you were actually of their own, if that makes sense, okay? So the Lord's like, while they're sitting there laughing, thinking they have this last laugh, in actuality, the Lord has the last laugh, because none of what these mediums were telling them in that negative way about you was for you. That was for them, right? They just didn't know that. They just assumed it was for you. But, that's what you get when you go back to try to see what damage you've caused, right? And so now it's just came back on them. It's like the Lord's showing me that they tried to fling mud at you, and they went and saw you 2 days later and you looked clean. And so they're like, well, did it land on them or not? And so then they wanted to fling it again, but they're not realizing that every time they're flinging it, the wind is actually blowing up. And when they turn around, it hits them on the back. So they're not seeing it because it's not on the front, it's hitting them at the back, because just as they had done this, the wind came up, act of God, and blew it back on them. And it didn't hit them in the front where they were able to see it land on them. It hit them in the back where they weren't able to see it. And so they kept doing this over and over again, trying to see when and if it's hit you, because they keep flinging it and they don't see where it's going. In actuality, in reality, it's coming back on them. And so when they're going to consult people to tell them where this mud has went, the person is saying, oh, the muds went on someone, and so like, well, it's got to be them because I flung it. Not in actuality, not realizing that this whole time they've been the one walking around with the mud on their back for however long, right? I hope that makes sense. So there's that. Then the other twist is that when they've heard in the past, and the Lord says they're starting to see this now because they're under judgment. So these prophesied things that they thought were for you in the past, they're coming true in a way, but for them. And now that they're under judgment and you're not, they're starting to realize this slowly but surely, right? But it's hard. It takes time, because when you're under Satan's delusion and confusion for months and months on end, it can take some time to get out of that, right? And so simultaneously, when the opposite report was coming and good words were being passed out and good news was being passed out of someone being blessed, someone having heart's desires come, somebody being elevated, somebody being promoted, things like that, they assumed that was for them. That, like, so they were the bad report was for them and the good report was for you. But they just went ahead and assumed, because of what they were doing, and that because they're under Satan's delusion, they assumed that the bad report must be for you, and therefore their reward would be the good report. But in reality, it was backwards. And they didn't see that at the time. But here, the futures came around, and now they're starting to see it, that, oh, okay, actually, maybe the good news that we heard that we thought was for us was for them, and the bad news that we heard that was for them was actually for us. They're starting to put 2 and 2 together. And the only way that they're getting 2 and 2 put together properly, see, 2 plus 2 equals 4. And they're starting to see that now. But a year or two ago, they thought 2 plus 2 equaled 5. And so the Lord is saying they're starting to understand a bit better, but the only reason they're starting to understand a bit better is because he's had them under this wrath and judgment that was technically prophesied for them, that they went and paid money for and spent time and effort and energy on to get access to, right? So the Lord is like, why are you mad? You expected somebody to go through hardship, and, you got your money's worth, because someone is going through hardship. It's just, not the person that deserves to. Because why would you deserve to go through any wrath, judgment, or hardship? You haven't done anything wrong. And even if you did do wrong in your past, that was years ago. You've already repented and been cleared of the slate for that, and the Lord has forgiven you. And not only that, you don't do those things anymore. The Lord doesn't judge people on what they did. Well, he does, but you know what I'm saying? He's not going to judge you today as a follower of God on things you did 5 years ago, especially when you repented for it. He would judge you on the things that you did yesterday, today, and tomorrow, right? These people haven't gotten their judgment for the things they were doing 1, 2, 3 years ago. They haven't got it. And so they're overdue for it. Not only that, they haven't repented or anything of it. So therefore, why would you be in the same boat as them, right? I've already made words about this in the past, that you have to atone for what you do, right? That's just, if you don't atone for it in the physical world and you get away with it in the physical world, then the Lord will hold you to it. And I made a word out at the beginning of 2024 that the Lord's court will rule in 2024. So even if a judge or a jury or someone in law would let you got away with it on our physical world, God sees everything, he knows everything. So therefore, you're not going to get away with it throughout this year in 2024. When he's presiding over those judges, presiding over those lawyers, he's the head judge of all, right? The head of all court, spiritual court. So if you don't get caught up for what you do in the physical world against people, these lies, slander, gossip, etc., that's okay. The Lord will catch you up for it, right? So anyways, then they had to take it a step further because they know, about your prophetic and stuff. So then they were following into the prophetic to try to get more answers, but all that the majority of the prophetic was talking about was the blessings that are coming for you. Why? Because you follow the prophetic, you don't follow the tarot. So therefore the prophetic is more accurate in given your circumstances, right? So they were hoping that would, so here we are. So anyway, so the Lord is saying, here we are today where they're still receiving bad report through listening to prophetic words and tarot readings. And they're assuming that is, they assumed big time in the past that was for you.
And still today, they're trying to hope that it's still for you, and trying to hope that, what they're seeing isn't real. Like, they're starting to see that maybe they're the ones that are, in the bad, on the bad end, and that you're the one on the good end, but they don't want to believe that that could be. So therefore, they're still trying to, try and believe as best as they can that they're on the good end and you're on the bad end. But the Lord is making sure on a day-to-day basis that he's really making it real clear as to what it really is. See, they may have thought 2 + 2 equaled 5 last year, but this year he's really going to show them that no, you were wrong all along. 2 + 2 really equals 4. It did then, it does now, and it will next year, right? So the Lord is setting them straight on what's what, right? Because they thought that the bad news would be for you and the good news would be for them, but they're starting to slowly see that in actuality, the bad reports they had been receiving was for them and the good reports was for you. So anything that's been said negatively in either their tarot readings or whatever avenues they've approached in the last year or two, that's been all for them. So whatever information they received, they just should start getting prepared, because that's what's going to come, that's what's expected for them. And then vice versa, all the good news that they heard that they expected to be for them, all the positive reports, that's actually for you. And so we're going to see over this course of the next 6 months, you reaping those good reports and positive words that were prophesied, and we're going to see them receiving those negative words and hardships and negative message that were also prophesied, right? And they can't get mad because, like I put in a word the other day, they fell on their own sword. They did it to themselves. They're the ones that chose to A, throw rocks, B, hide their hands, and then C, just to add insult to injury and make it even worse, they went back to try to see what consequences or upheaval that this may have caused. And all that they basically did was receive a foreshadowing of the future for the bad report for them and the good report for you. So there's that. And then the second thing is that then the Lord is saying that on top of that, because they're starting to become aware, they're trying to do like law of attraction type of stuff, weird new age mumbo jumbo, trying to do spells to do a switcheroo and all this stuff, because they think that it worked in the past, but it never worked in the past. Because while they were walking around doing this stuff in the past, thinking 2 + 2 = 5, you and I both know, and the Lord knows, that 2 + 2 = 4. It always has and it always will. So it doesn't matter what they do, what they try to brainwash themselves into doing, brainwash others into doing. So the Lord is telling me that, like, for some of them, they're trying to, like, I don't know what you call it, but it's like a law of attraction thing. So the Lord gave me an example. He said, say you're overweight and you just keep telling yourself, I'm skinny, I'm skinny, I'm skinny, that you'll just suddenly become skinny. I don't understand the logic in that. If you were overweight and you wanted to be skinny, the only way that's achievable is through diet and exercise and patience and persistence and motivation and time, right? But the Lord is trying to say that that's what it's like, is that these people, some of them that are heavily into this new age stuff, that thought they had this ultimate upper hand over God and power over God, are trying to say, tell themselves it's like that. Like, I'm blessed. I'm the one that's, abundant. I'm the one that's going to have positive report. The blessing futures for me. And then trying to say about you, they're the ones that are going to, be cursed. They're the ones that are going to suffer. They're the ones that are going to have hardship, so they're trying to, like, the Lord is telling me, they're trying to, like, switch the outcome, switch the verdict. And they're trying to do this through, like, some sort of mental magic, and also physical magic and verbal magic, where basically they're trying to use their thoughts and their words and their physical actions to try to do like a switcheroo or a swap, to where all the bad report that they had been receiving in the past that they thought was for you,
they're now realizing is for them, and all the good report that they thought was for them, but they're now realizing is for you. They're trying to steal away that good report for them and switch it up and give you that bad report. And the Lord is saying this is not new. This is something that they were doing even back when, right? This was a part of these tactics that they were doing, right? And the Lord is saying it didn't work then, did it? So what makes you think it would work now, right? When your slate is even cleaner than it was a year ago, and their slate is even dirtier than it was a year ago. So if a year ago you weren't as saved as you are now, and they are even less saved now than they were then because of what's transpired over this last year in specific, and it didn't work, what makes them think that when you're in an even better standing with the Lord now than you were last year, and they're in an even worse standing with the Lord this year than they were last year, what makes them think the switcheroo would work now, right? It's too late. Like I said, as soon as we hit March 2024 and the new year began on the Hebrew calendar, the Lord is saying that's when the cups of wrath started to get poured out. And these things that they had been using against you were never successful, but the successfulness of it got shut down back at that time. So for all of April and May and June, these things have not been successful, and they will continue to not be successful, and they will continue to go under wrath. You couldn't change the verdicts back then, and you definitely can't change them now, right? But the Lord is just saying that, so they're pulling out all the stops, and this reminds me of a word I put out about 2 weeks ago saying the counterfeits are scrambling, and the Lord is giving me more revelation confirmation on that this is what he meant, was that they're trying to do everything that they were doing in 2022 2023 to the 10th power, but it wasn't they're seeing now in 2024 that it obviously didn't work out the way they thought it worked out in 2022 2023. So therefore the Lord is saying, if it didn't back then, why would it now? It has an even less success rate than it did back then, because this is 2024, the year of exposure, the year of judgment, the year of, open doors for you, but also of purifying their clean hands and clean hearts, right? So anyways, the Lord's just saying, long story short, I hope you're still with me. I tried to explain this as best as I could. It's difficult sometimes with because the Lord will give me something that's, I don't want to call it complicated or complex, because that's not it. It's actually very simple. But to try to retrieve from him what he's saying to me and put it into words that are understandable from my mouth, which is just a mere mortals compared to the Lord. I can't speak in the eloquent, perfect way that he does, right? And so therefore I try my best, and I appreciate those who follow along, because I know that I jumble sometimes and stumble. But yeah, so I don't know, but yeah, the Lord is just wanting to get to the crux, and the crux of it is that at this time, and for the last week or two, yes, they relied on the power of the new moon. They're going to be trying to rely on the power of the full moon coming up, in a week or two, because they're going full stop, trying to pull these same tried out tactics from the past that didn't work then. Because like I always say, there's nothing new under the sun. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. They keep doing the same. That's all they have, is those same tools, those same quote unquote weapons and tactics. And the Lord knows them well, and at this time so do you, and so the Lord moves accordingly, right? And they're doing that to the next extreme, and really trying to pull on the moon energy, thinking that all these things are going to somehow do this switcheroo outcome, and it's not going to happen. And they're going to wear themselves out trying, because as they continue to try this throughout June, July, August, September, October, obviously the wrath is just going to continue to be poured out through those months. They're not even going to have the energy to physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to be able to try to pull this same, to pull these same things up, 3 months down the road as they did 3 months ago, because the Lord's just it's going to slowly drain out their energy. So, but yeah, he just wanted to really highlight the fact that they're trying to do this weird, I'm calling it law of attraction, because I think that's where you say I have a mansion, and then you get one, or you say I have a brand new car and you get one. But not only is that foolish, like, no, that's just a bunch of nonsense, and it's never been a proven fact. But not only that, even if we believe that as humans, the Lord is telling me, like, no, like, that's not a thing. And even if they think it is a thing and it's been shown to be successful to them in the past, that wasn't true success. That was the Lord allowing them to get away with it at the time. So if they were doing that tactic and wishing things on you, and maybe they saw proof of it happening, they wanted you and your spouse to split up and you all did, or they wanted your family to turn their backs on you and they did, they're like, oh, it worked. No, the Lord allowed you and your spouse to split up because they weren't the one for you. And the Lord allowed your family to turn their backs on you so that the Lord could show you and teach you that your family never had your back. So these people thought that they were achieving success through these tactics in the years past, but the Lord is saying, no, it was never successful, ever, ever, ever. The only reason you might have, it appeared as though it was successful, was because the Lord himself allowed a success to occur, not for their validation, but in the long run for your betterment, to teach you a lesson so that you could learn to be a better, to pick a better partner in the future, to stay away from certain family members, to know who's doing what to you behind your back, know who to trust and who not to trust. Basically, the Lord was shaping up your discernment, your gift of discernment, right? Which is required when you're a true child of God. So therefore, the Lord allowed these tactics to work in your for your betterment, to improve your gifts of discernment for your future future moves, like the things you do in the future to benefit you and only you. And these people mistakenly thought that it worked, and because they thought that it worked, they continued to do these tactics. And then but the Lord is saying they were slowly digging this proverbial pit that they themselves have fallen in, and when they continue to do these things to you through June, July, August, the pit just gets deeper and deeper. And as we know, when your pit is too deep, it just gets all the harder to get out. I mean, you can't get out at 2 feet, but it's even harder to get out at 6, and even harder to get out at 10. So the Lord is saying that all they're ultimately doing is just burying themselves deeper in this pit and making it all the harder for them to try to crawl out. But again, that's intentional for their lessons to learn for themselves, so that they can be better off in their future, like you were, right? Because like I say, the Lord is strategic and he doesn't waste anything. So even the positions that these people played in your life, those didn't go to waste. And even your position in these people's lives your position in these people's lives didn't go to waste either, right? The Lord allowed their tactics to improve you, and the Lord is going to allow their tactics to improve them. They're falling on their own sword, right? They're only doing it to themselves. So the Lord is saying, when this continues to blow up in their face, they'll have no one to blame but themselves. Just like Saul had no one to blame but himself, right? He shouldn't have visited the medium, and he shouldn't have done what he was doing to David. And at the very end, he should have at least repented to the Lord. So anyways, on that note, I hope I didn't lose you along the way. Again, those who have spiritual ears will hear. I hope it finds who it needs to find. I hope it resonates for you. I hope it finds you well, and take care, and God bless.